Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the Backman Report. Every week, Fred Alvader and I get together and bring you the latest in the world of golf, especially all the news, insights, analysis, interviews, recaps, reviews. Here we cover anything and everything golf. In other words, if it happened in golf, we have it for you. We were not last week. I mean, Fred was doing some things. I got caught up in some work. So really, we apologize for not bringing you. I know you were waiting for us to bring you the latest in the world of golf. I even stood up Kieran Clark. I had called him. We had called him to bring him on, and I'm sorry, Kieran. I'm really publicly here apologizing to you for that. I mean, it was something that has kept me even awake. And as you see, I have this background here because I'm still in the office. So that's how things have gone for me. But Fred and I are this week here and have a lot to talk about and bring you the latest that happened this past week. There's a lot going on. And Fred, hi, how are you this week?
Hey, Carlos. Yeah, you tech guys right now with all this Zoom calls and all this stuff going on, a lot of opportunities for problems with all that, I'm sure. So good luck with all that stuff. Yeah, Carlos, I was up at Boyne last weekend. I got to tell everybody, Boyne is actually in fantastic shape. Every golf course, we played 5 of the 10 golf courses. They're absolutely beautiful. Stayed at the end of Bay Harbor. I don't know if anybody saw it on Facebook. I posted a video from our balcony of our room. We were on the top floor and looking out over Little Traverse Bay. It's a beautiful sight up there, I got to tell you. But you know what? Coronavirus continues to be the top story in not only golf, but in all sports this week, as more players and caddies are found to have been infected with the disease, causing withdrawals and more questions. We're going to talk about that more tonight. This season is so screwed up. It appears that the COVID cases are beginning to spike again all across the country. We kind of talked about that earlier, that as we got things open back up, we're going to see more cases. Death rates don't seem to be too bad, so I hope that everything kind of works out. Like I said, Boyne is just fantastic. I got to go to all 3 resorts this time. I had never been out to the mountain myself, and I got to play the Alpine course out there. When you start out, Carlos, you're in the valley, and you take a 1.2-mile cart ride up to the top of the mountain. There's 2 courses there, and they both start right at the same place at the top, the Alpine and the Monument. And then you play your way down the mountain. It's, probably a 450 or 500 foot drop from the top to the bottom. Just absolutely beautiful. It was a fantastic golf course. I didn't think they would be that nice, but they're really, really good. Top stories this week in golf, Carlos. Fox making big news as they ditched the USGA contract. We're going to talk about that. A golfer saved a life on the golf course. That's fantastic. And then Dustin Johnson won at Travelers, of course, this weekend. Phil had a great first couple rounds, but he kind of faded on the weekend. That's what happens to old guys. They don't have the stamina anymore. So, Carlos, we got a lot of golf to talk about, as always. Great to be back with you, buddy. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it. And right away, we're going to start with the recap of this past weekend's action. That is what we call the weekend backspin. And we start talking about the PGA Tour. Dustin Johnson, he broke out of a slump. I mean, for him anyway, right? Because he shot 3 under 67 on Sunday and won the Travelers Championship by 1 stroke over Kevin Streelman. Now, he won a whooping 20 events since his last win last year's WGC Mexico. That's a huge slump, right? I mean, 20 events without winning. That's just unacceptable, DJ. This cannot happen again. I know you agree. You said it. You hope it doesn't. But I guess you wanted to wait for your 21st event since your last win to win your lucky number 21, because that is your 21st win. So his latest triumph right now extends his streak to at least 1 victory on the PGA Tour for 13 consecutive years. Like I said, this is his 21st career title and ties him with World Golf Hall of Famers Davis Love III and Lanny Watkins. So you know where DJ's headed. He's headed for the Hall of Fame anyways. So DJ, as you all know, he was a world number 1. He entered the week ranked 6th. So it's the first time he had dropped out of the top 5 since he won the 2016 US Open. He didn't finish in the top 10 in his final 8 events of last season. Then he underwent surgery to repair a cartilage damage in his left knee in September. He returned maybe a little too soon, you might say, to the President's Cup in December. His game still looked a little rusty. He conceded that he tweaked his knee and required an MRI that revealed a strained tendon. Now, add to that the tour had a 91-day suspension of play due to the global pandemic, and it came a good time for him. So he hadn't recorded top 5 finish since that runner-up at the PGA Championship last May, about a year of that. So that's really, you can say, and even when we saw him at the TaylorMade Relief, the match, he was the only one that looked like out of sorts. So it looked here also that it might have been another frustrating week for him, but he really, really made it up because he was able. He struggled at the first time. He went to 1 over par through his first 12 holes. You would have said, okay, he has no chance. That was Thursday. But then he ran off a stretch of 17 under over his next 42 holes, which included that magical 9 under 61 on Saturday. It marked his career low in 918 career rounds on the tour, and he entered the final round trailing Brendan Todd, who was the 54-hole leader, and Matt Johnson with 61 by 2 strokes. Fred, we all know DJ is known as one of the longest and most accurate drivers of the golf ball, but he got a lift from a new putter. He started the week by testing 6 different putters. He narrowed it down to 2 before he settled for the TaylorMade Trust TB1 model. I think it's safe to say that search was for a good reason. He entered the week ranked 134th stroke gains putting this season. So if something was lacking, it was his putting, but he got it going this week, and that was the key for him. Fred, I think he'll be sticking with this new putter for a little while.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. I got a chuckle out of watching that when they were talking about him testing out these putters and deciding which one he was going to use. I thought it was pretty funny. Kind of had his own little March Madness kind of thing, own little tournament going on there with putters. What have you done for me lately? But it worked. You know, he ends up winning a tournament, putting very well. So we all know that Dustin Johnson has so much talent. You know, just unbelievable athlete. You can just tell how he moves, and he works hard, and he's really a good player. Kevin Streelman hung right in there. Brendan Todd, not so much. Had that, you know, he made all pars on the front, made that triple bogey at number 12, a couple more bogeys coming in. He really dropped down. I think he ended up down around T11 or something like that. You've got Phil. We got to talk about Phil, Carlos, right? We got to talk about him. Played brilliantly on Thursday and Friday. 64, 63, 36-hole leader. But then, as old guys do, they get tired, you know, things get to them. 71, 71 on the weekend. He ends up dropping clear down to T24. So you got, I think he played a lot with Rory McIlroy and Bryson DeChambeau there the first couple rounds. That was a marquee pairing, of course. So Phil got a lot of press first couple days, but couldn't hold on to it. Let's talk about Rory McIlroy a little bit. Scores of 63, great first round, 68, 69, 67. Those sound really good, but he ends up T11 as well. But he just says, you know, I'm making really dumb mistakes. And even after a 3-month layoff, and he's played a few weeks, he needs a break. He's gonna quit playing for a couple weeks. Maybe he can get his head right. Another big story: Colin Morikawa finally missed a cut. Made 22 consecutive, just a couple short of what Tiger had. Well played, though, for the rookie, 22 consecutive cuts. Good news for Will Gordon, Carlos. He's now a tour member on a sponsor's exemption with a special temporary membership. Made the most of that sponsor's exemption, played really well. I think he ended up like in 4th place or something like that. He at the Travelers, he finished tied for 3rd, I'm sorry. And he ended up getting a FedEx Cup points to move up. He had made 9 starts on the Mackenzie Tour in Canada in the 2019. He made 8 cuts, got a couple top 10 finishes, was number 21 on their order of merit. He's out of Vanderbilt. Now he's going to get all the sponsors exemptions he can get through the rest of the year. Should maybe be able to earn enough points to have a card for next year, so he doesn't have to kind of worry about this only 10 card thing for the from the Corn Ferry Tour this year. He should be able to it's kind of in his hands now to do what he wants to try and make sure he keeps his card for next year, Carlos.
Definitely, and it was good to see. We're starting to see players round into form, and Dustin Johnson is one. Definitely, like you mentioned, we have to talk about Phil Mickelson. I mean, he thrilled everyone on Friday, giving everybody hope. Hey, after 50, you're leading one PGA Tour tournament. It looked magical, but definitely, like you mentioned, he definitely didn't have it during the weekend. Could be his age, could be that hey, he's still not in physical form enough to be those 4 rounds.
He
I guess
looked
we'll
really
know
thin
more.
to me, Carlos. Did you notice that, Phil? Was it the pants he was wearing?
I
Or
think I was about to talk about that, about the
yeah.
pants. I think the joggers,
I'm
and
not into the joggers, no.
no, I think the joggers didn't help him. Plus those big shades. What was up with that? But anyway, uh, I think he hit 50 and he said, "I got to look young."
Yeah.
But
Yeah. It doesn't get it, does it?
no, he doesn't. I mean, if he didn't get it from social media, I don't know what it's gonna be. But anyway, no, it was a great tournament. We're starting to see um, what I think is going to happen the rest of the season. Players are getting in shape, still playing, but I think it's time for us to talk about our weekly COVID-19 part. And I know we had some other news on it later on, but since we're going to talk about what happened here at the Travelers, I think we should just address the COVID-19
Sure.
topic right now. And after a week and a half, you can say that the best case scenario is playing out in the PGA Tour's return. But the last several days, maybe the past week and a half, have been a reality check for the world of golf. Not that we didn't expect it. And that's what we're going to talk about. What really people think, what really we think is happening. But let's talk about Nick Watney. He became the first tour player to test positive for COVID-19 last Friday after falling ill. After he passed the initial test when he arrived on site at the RBC Heritage, then the rest of the week went without a hitch, right? But as the tour moved to the Connecticut for the Travelers Championship, then Cameron Champ became the second player to test positive. He said, I feel great, and I was obviously surprised and disappointed of that result. Let's leave it at that for now. We'll talk about that and Cameron Champ. Then late Tuesday and into Wednesday, more leaks into the dam presented themselves as GMAC, Brooks Koepka. They withdrew from the event in an abundance of caution as a result of their caddies, each receiving a positive result. These positives triggered their own web that resulted in Koepka's brother Chase also withdrawing. Webb Simpson, the tour's most recent winner, also announced he had withdrawn from the Travelers after a member of his family tested positive for COVID-19. So Cameron Champ had to withdraw from a positive testing after arriving Tuesday. GMAC after his caddy, Brooks Koepka after his caddy Ricky Elliott, Chase, of course, because of caution, he was playing after a practice round with Brooks and GMAC, Webb because of a family member. Fred, I'm gonna give it this is the preset, right? Let's see. Are we really going to the extremes? Is it really something that the players doing it well? This is how it's supposed to be, or is the PGA Tour doing anything wrong? What is your take on what's happening so far and this rising stuff? And we're going to talk about the Rocket Mortgage and 2 players that are not going to be there because of the same thing and a change that the PGA Tour did on their policy. But what is your take, first of all on that is happening so far with the
Number
COVID-19 on
one,
the
the
PGA Tour?
PGA Tour, I don't think they're doing anything wrong. They are taking all the appropriate measures that they feel they can possibly do. They've administered over 2,700 tests, testing people. And the fact that these guys are showing up positive are proof that they are checking. So, they're doing what they can do. And these make the news, but it's still a very small number for all the amount of people that are involved. We're talking about 144 players in the field. Then you've got another 144 caddies. So right there's 288 people, all right? And then they're around, they're traveling, they're eating at restaurants, they're in hotels, they're walking through lobbies. Maybe they took an airplane. There's a lot of chances for these people to get up next to somebody and be infected. Jay Monahan said, guys, you've got to be more careful what you're doing. You can't be going out eating together and partying and doing that kind of stuff. When you're off the course, you've got to be just as vigilant as we are being at the golf course. When they're at the golf course, I think they're in a bubble. I think they're really safe. But they're finding these cases, they're being infected away from the golf course, either at home, on an airplane, in a restaurant, in a hotel, somewhere other than on the golf course. So I tell you what, I was with a group of golf writers up at Boyne, and a couple of them were they're convinced that the golf season is going to be shut down in a few weeks. They're convinced that there's going to be too many cases, and they're just going to say, we can't do this, and shut it down. So, and Carlos, as well as I do, we're very close to some big deals coming up here at the end of the, just another week or so. Next week, we've got the Memorial with fans. The week after that, 2 weeks after that, we've got the start of the LPGA season here with fans in Toledo. So we're going to be able to get fans back on the golf courses. But are we going to have to pull the plug because we're seeing too many cases? I want to err on the other side. I think they're doing everything they can. I don't think they want to stop it. I think guys just have to be careful. It's out there. It's a flu. It's like anything else. We're seeing the numbers spike across the country, but the medical personnel seem to be able to handle it. We're not overrunning the hospitals at this point. So the death rate is not increasing. It's very low. So, just getting this thing isn't really the reason to stop playing. It doesn't seem like to me. Now, if the death rate starts spiking up and you start tracking this back to your family, and older family members or family members with health issues start, having mortality issues, then they'll probably have to do something. But Carlos, for right now, I think they're doing everything they can. I think this is just kind of like normal business as normal kind of thing, right? This is what we got, right?
I think so. And I'm not one that likes to try to just talk to make everyone feel great about it. I had this argument with somebody this past week because of this. I had to travel to Austin for some of the work that we were doing, and they were requiring a lot of using the mask and all that. And I use it, no problem. I have no problem using it and all that. But we started talking about golf because he knows about me and having the show here. And the thing is this, the way that I explained it to him, because he had heard about the players that had to withdraw and all this. And I was saying to him, look, they're not doing anything wrong with having to play. That is their job. The professional golfer's job is to go there every week.
You're doing your job, right?
Yeah,
I mean, exactly.
We're going to work. They are going to work. Who are they affecting by going to the golf course and playing? The PGA Tour is taking all the precautions. They even change it now to you have to be negative before entering the tournament, which is the reason. And we're going to talk about the two players that had to go. And I forgot to talk about Denny McCarthy, who
Yeah.
withdrew during the Travels Championship, and Jason Day had to play alone. Now, here's the thing. That's the things that are being done. The players have the right to, once they're playing and are there, okay, it was somebody, because in the case of Koepka and GMAC, it wasn't them, it was their caddy.
They
And
were
that
just being
doesn't
cautious.
mean, and they were negative. It wasn't that Koepka or GMAC were positive. They said, look, I don't know right now if I'm going to get it, and I can pass it to somebody else. That alone tells you they're taking precautions so that nobody else gets it. It's up to us. We have to go to work. We have to do our job with that. So shutting it down, like you're saying, I don't think it's the right thing to do. You can still go out of abundance of caution, keep testing. And again, just because of the optics that the PGA Tour is the only major sports right now here in the States, because of course there's the soccer and all that that are playing, and NASCAR, they have their own thing. But again, because of the optics that the PGA Tour brings, that's why we hear and we keep seeing all this, these people talking and complaining. Really, that's what I just see. There's a tournament, and you mentioned it very well. You know, the LPGA months ago, Stacy Lewis stated that any tournament the LPGA manages to get in front of this for the rest of the 2020 would be a bonus, because you know she had that freak out moment recently. We live here in Texas, and we have reported over 5,000 plus new cases for a second consecutive day, and the average of new patients are dropping them dramatically. It's not like they're getting up there that much. Okay, yes, people are getting it, but we're not getting that much of people on the hospitals. But the thing is that the LPGA, like you mentioned, it's slated to start late July, early August with those events there in Toledo. And the LPGA players are keeping an eye, like everybody else, on what's happening on the PGA Tour, because quite frankly, they're depending on the men's success, and that happening. And so is every other tournament, every other major sports are really looking at what they're doing. And the adjustments that they're doing is basically on what the PGA Tour is doing. They're doing a great job. Okay, and the golfers, the way for them to work is that you don't have to see it as they're trying to just get to play something. They are really, that's their job, Fred. And it would be really, really pitiful if they have to shut it down. They already had to do the Ryder Cup, but I understand, and I had talked about this before. I understood that the Ryder Cup should have been moved more because of logistics than because of the flu. I mean, because of the COVID-19. So I'll stop it there, because if not, I'll take the whole hour talking about this. But that's what I was telling my coworker. Look, you know, it's up to us, and the players are doing it. You know, they're taking their part, they're taking precautions, and still it's just a small sample of what is going on.
Well, they all understand how important it is, because they are the leaders right now. Everybody is watching golf right now, watching professional golf, men's golf. So, Carlos, I want to make 2 points before we leave this topic. Number one is the PGA Tours that are tested positive are receiving a $100,000 stipend. So they're not going away empty-handed. You know, for if they test positive, then they got to take the 2 weeks and sit around. They are getting paid by the tour. That's quite something. Number two, Cameron Champ was tested positive. Within 72 hours, he had 3 negative tests. So was he really? And he said he felt fine, never had anything, you know, no fever or anything. So maybe the tests aren't 100% perfect either. Maybe some of these people that are testing positive really don't have it. So I want to make those 2 points, that there's still a lot of uncertainty with this whole thing. How do you get it? You know, does sun kill it? And, you know, all this stuff. I just know that, and we're going to talk about this a little more later maybe, but I did some traveling last week, and I was very careful. We played a lot of golf. We stayed separate. We ate dinner together. And hopefully I won't have a recurrence or any problems for that. But the people, the staffs at all the hotels, at all the restaurants, every place I was, were very cautious. And I think everybody's doing what they can do. We just have to go about our lives, Carlos, with everything. It's not just golf, it's everything. We got to just keep going with our routine and live our life.
You know, and I think we have to get into the topic
Okay.
because
All right.
I mean, stop right now, and that was our topic really, and it because it's an important topic. This is the reality that we're living in. So just like you, I had to travel this past week. So our topic is really, what are your current thoughts, maybe on travel for golf, business or pleasure? You know, what would you do if you go to drive to a golf resort? Would you stay in a hotel, dine out? What are you going to do? What are your logistics, to put it that way, if you have to travel, especially for a golf thing? In my case, I had to do it for business. I had to drive. I drove with a coworker of mine, and we stayed at a hotel. On our way there, we stopped at places to eat. We had lunch, we had dinner after we did I mean, while we were doing our job at night, we went out to have some dinner, got back to work. We stayed at a hotel. We drove back. We had breakfast somewhere else as well. So it wasn't like we were staying in the hotel and eating there. Now, I said that, and somebody criticized me for doing that. And I said, you're criticizing me for doing my job. Now, I am also mindful of the people that work at these places to eat. You know, it's 21 million Americans that have lost their job because of this. And I'm not being irresponsible if I go to a place, take my measures of having my mask, keeping my social distancing, and respecting everybody else's personal space. I do have an issue if somebody else doesn't do it, because I'm doing it for myself and for somebody else. As long as you're responsible doing that, I feel like you can go anywhere. Businesses don't want to close, okay? They want to keep their business going. That being said, I went there. Let's say, I don't want to say the place, but one place that I went for lunch, they had their booths with this vinyl between every booth. Okay. So in that sense, you say, okay, man, it's not 6 feet apart, but you are really in an enclosure. Okay. So anything that would happen, because this is about you transmitting it airborne and all that, it's going to get stopped right there. All right. You had to I wear my mask coming in. I just took it out because I have to eat. But the thing is that all the people in the restaurant, they had their mask on. They were, you know, you are starting to see, even to one of the places, the place that I went to have the dining on, I had the menu on my phone. They tell me, okay, scan here. So they're not even giving me a menu. When I go to pay, I use my phone, touchless. Okay. The technologies out there, they're being creative with things for you to be safe. It's up to you again. So I would feel very comfortable going anywhere, because as long as I keep myself responsible and protecting myself and others from me, everybody should do the same. The problem is when somebody else doesn't do it. That is the problem, really. But for me, I really felt, it's not that I was there not being careful, because one thing is about feeling safe and the other one is about you being careful and aware of your surroundings, of what you're doing. And that's what I was doing. You know, and as long as I do that, it's not that I feel safe, because I know that at any point there's so many millions of points that you can touch or do, that you can protect yourself against everything.
Yep.
But as long,
You'd have to wear a bubble suit or a hazmat suit.
yeah,
I mean, that ain't gonna happen. Exactly.
right. So as long as you maintain yourself responsible, I think that life can go on. And I'm not being disrespectful to anyone. And I respect if you don't like it. That is your personal opinion and you can do it. But to me, honestly, if everybody would take care of themselves and respect others, we should be fine.
Yeah, Carlos, I'm going to cover this on a lot of different levels. So number one, I did travel last week on a media trip. They knew it was kind of the first media trip that was out there. Nobody really is talking about doing that. And Boeing decided they wanted to have a few guys in. We all drove in. Nobody flew. Two guys came from Chicago. Two guys came from Wisconsin. I came up from Cadillac, really, which is a 2.5-hour drive. So no flying. In the hotel, we stayed the first couple nights in the Ross Cottages at Boyne Highlands, and the cottages are meant for 4 people. There's 4 bedrooms, big living rooms. You know, it's a really nice big condo. They only put 2 people in each unit. So my partner Kevin, we shared the condo. He had the upstairs, and we didn't even see each other in the condo really the whole time we were there. Except on the golf course. We saw each other at the golf course and when we ate, but in the condo, we were completely separated. So driving up there, I had to get gas, but you know, you're at the pump, you really don't see anybody. I didn't stop to eat on the way up there. When I drove back to Toledo from Cadillac on Sunday night, I just drove straight through, didn't stop anywhere. So when I'm at home, for our personal, we haven't been dining out. I think we've only been in maybe 2 restaurants. My wife, I guess we've been in 1 restaurant since the beginning of March, which is really unusual for us. But we do call and order some stuff, go pick it up and bring it back home to eat it. That seems to work pretty well. Also, so I traveled for business, traveling for pleasure, really haven't been doing it. Traveling for golf, I guess you could say this media trip I was on was for business and for golf. Staying in a hotel, I did that. I felt very safe. The staff at the hotel was really courteous. So in the one hotel, they have a morning buffet. Both hotels, both places we stayed in had morning buffets. But the one location, the restaurant, they didn't have the buffet. They just had a menu of like 4 items that you could pick. That was it. And they brought everything out. So all the condiments were in individual packets, and so in the basket. And so nobody touched those. You would get them yourselves. So like for the syrups and all that kind of thing. And then the other restaurant has this great buffet every day of the week, fabulous buffet. And so they still had the buffet, but they had it all cordoned off with plexiglass, and they had the staff serving. You could pick what you wanted, but then the staff served you. So they had an omelet station, and they had the French toast and pancakes and, potatoes, eggs, all the stuff, but you picked it and they put it on a plate for you and gave it to you. I thought that was kind of unique. And talking to Ken Griffin, who's the marketing director there, we've had Ken on the show before. He said, we let each location kind of, the general manager, the manager at each location and the staff decide how they want to do stuff. He said, it's amazing. He all came up with a little different twist on stuff, but they approved it all. It's all working for them. It's how they like to do it. And so they're very cognizant of what they're doing. Now, last topic I'm going to cut, 2 topics. Number one, wearing a mask. When I go into a store or when I go into someplace, I try and remember to wear the mask. I can't say I do it every time. I do forget, even though it's laying right there in my truck, right beside me. I'll get out of the truck and walk in without wearing it. I've had 2 places wouldn't let me in. They say you have to wear a mask before you come in because the ownership of the place, they're a little bit older and they don't want the risk. So I go back out the truck and get it, not a problem. The other thing is flying on an airplane. I don't think I would get on an airplane right now unless it would be an emergency situation and I absolutely had to get someplace because I had a family. The only reason I would get on a plane is if I had a family member that needed me there right away. Even if I had to go to the West Coast, I would drive if I had a couple days to get there. So that's my thing, and that's what I'm hearing, Carlos. In all of our advertising efforts right now for the magazines, we're talking to resorts in driving distance. Say, listen, people are going to want to travel, they're going to want to play golf, but they're going to want to drive. You need to be promoting that. And so where people have to fly or something, that's a little bit harder sell, and I'm not really even working that right now. But getting on an airplane, until they have some kind of a vaccine or some kind of a medication that's easy to take, I just don't think people are going to jump on planes yet. But I think everything else is a go, Carlos.
I agree with you, and I wouldn't also get on a plane. I went to Austin because it was driving, and again, I went with my coworker. He stayed in his room, I stayed in mine, and yeah, the only thing that I would be apprehensive and see, this is what we're saying. It's not that we're taking a lot of risks on things. We're saying we wouldn't get on an airplane. That would be something that I would be just too close to somebody else for comfort. Let's put it that way. But I think that's the message that both you and I agree is like, we still can go out as long as you're respectful of the others. Like you mentioned, I have no issue if you have to make me wear a mask. Like there's times that I haven't done it, but when I went to Austin, I had to wear it everywhere. No problem. All right. We have to respect each other. And yeah, I wouldn't go on an airplane, but I think everybody, at least for the most part, a lot of people are doing their best, especially businesses, to maintain businesses going. That, yes, this was going to be expected, the spike. Yes, we knew that was going to happen because testings are more open right now. So when you test more, the sample is bigger, so you're going to get more people on it. I truly don't think it's because you're getting it more spread right now. I think it was this way, but now we're really finding out really how spread it was. But
Carlos,
anyway, again,
one more point before you get away. Number one, I am doing a tremendous amount of golf lessons. I'm having a lot of interest in golf lessons this year. It's a sport people can be outside to do, and they want to do something. And so more people are coming back to golf this year. A lot of new golfers are coming. The second thing is that talking to one of the driving range owners today that I know pretty well, his business is up 50% from this time last year. 50%. So.
Yeah, no, and it's because of that. I mean, golf is the perfect sport for you to come here and be social distancing. You can be separate from somebody else. You can have your own cart. You can walk separate by somebody else. And it's really that, I think that is one of the reasons why golf is getting not only a boost, but it's also getting those optics in all this tournament. So anyway, we all know, we all have our opinions, we have our own causes and remedies, and that's what makes it different. But be careful out there, be mindful of everybody else, and we'll get through this. Okay, now that we finish our extended COVID-19 edition of the Back Nine Report, let's go back to the recaps because we were still doing recaps, and let's talk about the Corn Ferry Tour and the Utah Championship. And I really have to, I'm sorry, Kyle Jones, with all due respect, I'm going to talk a little bit about Daniel Summerhays. He's a former BYU All-American, and it shocks me that at only 36 years old, okay, we were watching Phil Mickelson at 50, playing with the big guys. Of course, Phil is at another level, but still at 50 years old, he still wants to play. We see Steve Stricker, we see Vijay Singh, all these other players trying to compete still on the PGA Tour. And Daniel Summerhays, at just 36 years old, prior to that event, he confirmed that he's transitioning to a new career. It's not that he's going out of golf, but he's transitioning from a pro golfer to a teacher and a golf coach at his old high school, Davis, home of the darts. Davis is located in Caseville, in Utah, which is about 20 miles north of Salt Lake City. And according to the Desert News, Summerhays had a foot and ankle surgery in February. He then stayed home during the global coronavirus pandemic and was making his final professional PGA start in a PGA Tour sanctioned event. And on the course, he played countless times growing up, and he was trying to write a storybook ending to his professional playing career. He was competing there at the Corn Ferry Tour's Utah Championship on Sunday at the Oak Ridge Country Club in Farmington, Utah, and he shot a final round of 62. I mean, he did everything he good to win that. And even that 62 included a bogey on the 18th hole. He recorded 6 birdies before he eagled the par 5-15. Then he birdied the 16-17 to finish at 20 under for the tournament. And then he waited and waited and waited for 2 hours and 45 minutes. After that long break, he walked back to the 18th green and watched as Paul Haley II and Kyle Jones each made putts to also get to 20 under, forcing a three-way playoff. Summer Hayes unfortunately missed a par putt on the first play of hole when the ball just simply refused to get in the cup. Kyle Jones went on to win the event with a birdie on the second play of hole. So for Kyle, congratulations, man. That's your first professional victory. I know that's one you will never forget. But Fred, to me, is really interesting that Daniel Summerhays, I know he's not a big name. I understand. He just won but he won $9.7 million in prize during his PGA Tour career. He never broke through on the big stage with a win, although he came close. I mean, he lost in a playoff at the 2013 Sanderson Farms Championship. But it makes you think, at 36 years old, he called it a career. And to me, it's just amazing that at that time, what are the things that get a player like him to just walk away?
Number one, got some kids. 26, and I'm not sure, but these kids are maybe 10, 12, 13 years old. Perfect time to be home with his kids. He's going to coach high school golf. What a lot of fun. If you got kids, that'll be perfect, right? He may want to, it's a grind, Carlos. When you're trying to go between the Korn Ferry Tour and the PGA Tour back and forth, it's a grind trying to get to that next level and staying there. You mentioned he made a little over $9 million in prize money. Well, he probably made that much or more in sponsor money, endorsement money. So he probably made around $20 million in his career. If he was smart with it, he kept maybe at least half of that. He's probably got a nice little nest egg. Even though high school coaches don't get paid much, he should have a pretty nice, income coming off of that if he invested that money right. So that's number two. People just don't like to travel, Carlos. Some people just hate to travel and stay in hotel rooms. And if he's got a family at home and he wants to be home, if he thinks he's got enough money, he doesn't have to do that anymore. More power to him. Stay at home, enjoy life. You don't have to be out there banging around, walking up and down golf courses. So I think it's great. Guys like Phil Mickelson want to be out there just competing at age 50. That just, good for him. He can still do it. But some guys, it's a job for them. And by the time they've been doing it, by the time they're 35, 36 years old, they've been doing it since they're 15, 16. They've been doing it for 20 years. They're ready to do something else. Just stay at home. If they never see another hotel in their life or a restaurant dinner, they're going to be happy as the devil probably. So that's probably the reasoning on that, Carlos, right there.
Definitely. I mean, it's interesting, really, but it's what you say. At 36, we don't realize how long have these players been playing. And like you said, you get day log miles, especially when you're not at that upper echelon. It wears on you, and people don't realize really all the effort that all these players have to go through. Get up early, exercise, because it's not that they're just standing there, waking up and just go one day and play golf. This is something you have to practice. Like you're mentioning, and we have said this for the whole show, this is their job. So they get up and they do golf. They go back down, they get up, and it's golf all the time. When you have to be traveling, that's a lot of miles that you have to go. And like you mentioned, family and everything wears down. So definitely we wish Daniel the best. And like you mentioned, maybe his kids are pretty soon, in a few years, they'll be in high school. Maybe he'll be their coach, and that'll be even more family time for him. But anyway, for Kyle Jones, first professional victory on the Korn Ferry Tour. So congratulations to him.
One more thought, Carlos. It's maybe not the age so much. It's how many drives hit out of bounds, how many shank chip shots, or how many missed 5-foot putts. That's maybe more tells on weighs on the mind more than the age.
It does. It does. Hey, but with that, we wrap up our weekend backspin. Now let's talk on our four call, which is our previews for this weekend. And we're going to talk about two tournaments. The first one is on the PGA Tour, and it's the next stop on the PGA Tour's revised schedule. That is the Rocket Mortgage Classic at the Detroit Golf Club. The field still does not include Tiger Woods, but still has plenty of talent. World number 6 and RBC Heritage winner Webb Simpson is on the field. I don't know if he'll play, but he'll there alongside with Patrick Reed, who's number 7. Bryson DeChambeau, who I don't know, maybe his muscles now have more added more resistance to him. He hasn't missed a play, and he's been top 10 all the time. He's at number 10 right now. Tony Finau is going to be there. Ricky Fowler is going to be there. Jason Day, who played just one round there alone this past weekend. Two players we know for sure won't be there. That's Dylan Fratelli and Harris English. They tested positive on the new pre-tournament testing that the PGA Tour is doing, so they have withdrawn from the event. For Thursday and Friday rounds, hey, there's going to be some nice featured groups on Golf Channel and PGA Tour Live, and you got to look out for Bryson with Hideki Matsuyama and Patrick Reed. That's going to be a very interesting threesome there. Jason Day is going to be with Brendan Todd, who really was the 54-hole leader there at the Travelers, and then had a meltdown. Bubba Watson is going to be part of that. That's going to be interesting. Ricky's going to be with Nate Lashley, who won last year, and Webb Simpson. And Sungjae Im is going to be with Tyrrell Hatton, who's playing really good, and Brent Snedeker. So how about this tournament, the Rocket Mortgage Classic there in Detroit, Fred?
Well, it's really great that they can get this done. It was really up in the air for a long time if they were even going to be able to hold this tournament. But it worked out, and they're getting it done. This is the last tournament on the PGA Tour without fans. So, no, I'm sorry. Take that back. We're going to have the workday next week. That's the first tournament down in Columbus without fans, without fans. You know, Quicken Loans puts the money up for this. Detroit Golf Club, Detroit Country Club, it's still a ball hitter's park. It's not big and long. It's tight. It's kind of narrow. They got to get their ball around there, just like every course they've played so far. Really kind of surprising that Dustin Johnson won. He must have really been controlling his ball well to win last week, because that's a tight golf course as well. Same kind of thing this week. Look for Webb Simpson to do well again. He's rested. He had a week off. This is his kind of golf course. I look for Ricky to have a breakout. He has not played that well since they came back, and I look for him to have a breakout this week. DeChambeau has been playing off the charts. You can't bet against him. Bubba's been spent a lot of time. He was doing some charity work up there, playing some golf, doing some stuff this week. So who knows with Bubba what'll end up with that. I'd like to see Brendan Todd have a nice bounce back week after falling so hard on Sunday. I'd like to see him get right back on the horse and have a good week. It's a real nice golf course. The golf course, is right north of downtown. And so it's kind of on the edge of a depressed area all around it. They're trying to renovate and rehabilitate the area, but there's still a lot of empty buildings around it. There's some old mansions that are sitting empty that the club has been trying to buy up and fix up and sell. So there's a lot of work being done in the community. It's a great old golf course, beautiful clubhouse. They just put a bunch of money in it over the last couple of years. And Detroit's just tickled to death to have a golf tournament again, Carlos.
I bet. And I have two players that you have to watch. Of course, you're going to say, yeah, you always say about that. But I'm going to tell you about Hideki Matsuyama.
I knew it.
This is like the course for him. His game off the tee really isn't like it was for the previous one, but this one is one that I think he's progressing to it. Victor Hovland, my pick for Rookie of the Year. He has definitely. Yeah. He's improving. He went there for that T11 at TPC River Highlands, and he led the field in strokes gained tee to green. That is really the key here in Detroit. Expect him to do good. And Tyler Hatton, I mean, he's a little dynamo and he's playing really good. I mean, he was at the top of the leaderboard 2 weeks ago. He failed, but hey, he's playing really good. So that's another player that I look forward to seeing doing good here. So anyway, now let's move on to a preview on the TPC Colorado Championship. And spectators will not be allowed on the course still, okay? But there will be a full field of professional golfers there at the Korn Ferry Tour. They're going to be competing for $600,000 in prize money for this 4th of July week. The TPC Colorado Championship at Heron Lakes in Berthoud. Now, Nerson Ledesma is one of the players that is going to be there. Look out. He's playing really, really, really good. He went on to earn his PGA Tour card, won last year's inaugural event. This event was the first PGA Tour sanctioned tournament in Colorado since the 2014 BMW Championship at Cherry Hills. This year, the tournament will be played Wednesday through Saturday. So it ends there on the 4th of July. The field of 156, they will be cutting down to the low 65 scores, including ties for the final 2 rounds, Friday and Saturday. There are 11 players in the field who have combined for 22 victories on the PGA Tour, 39 others who have won a combined 59 events on the Korn Ferry Tour. 2 current PGA Tour players, Mike Weir and Jonathan Kay, are in the field, and some of the Colorado-type players is going to include the Colorado State golfers Sakai Brown and Ryan Schmidt, who both receive sponsorship exemptions. Now, Will Zalatoris will be here. That's a player that I've been telling you, watch out. He's still playing good. He had another top 5 last week, so that's another player to look out there this weekend, Fred.
Yeah, Zatorius has gone T6, T3, and 4th. So he's playing quite well right now. Another name to watch, Dylan Wu. And then, we've been talking about Braden Thornberry for a long time. We're waiting for him to break through. So they're both in the field. This golf course, Carlos, can be stretched to 8,000 yards. 8,000. That's only about 2,000 more than what I'm kind of comfortable playing. The par 5 13th can stretch out to 773 yards. I played, I think the longest hole I've ever played was at Erin Hills, that one par 5 there. I think it can stretch out to like 653 or something like that, 639, somewhere in that. 773, that's, oh my goodness, that's driver, 3 wood, 3 wood, 3 wood, maybe 7 iron chip or something. That's a long ways. I don't care if you are in Colorado and you're up high in the airs, then that's still a long ways. So should be fun to watch. Korn Ferry Tour out in Colorado this week.
And with that, we wrap up our forecall or what's going to happen this week. Now, let's talk about some news, and a big one this week.
Big one.
Big one. Yeah, after enduring months-long desolate sports landscape in 2020, it was a cramped calendar that ultimately opened the door to a massive shift for the USGA. On Monday, they officially announced that the media rights for its championships have moved from Fox Sports to NBC Universal. The Associated Press was the first to break the story. They noted that the move ended a 12-year deal with Fox Sports worth about $1 billion. Now, here's the kicker. This deal is effective immediately, which means that the NBC Universal will not only broadcast the U.S. Open at Winged Foot, but also the 2 U.S. Amateur Championships before it, with the women's kicking off things at the August 3 to the 4 at Woodmont Country Club. Now, the 75th U.S. Women's Open will round up the rest of the USGA's shortened calendar from December 10 to 12 at Champions Golf Club in Houston. Now, after the COVID-19 pandemic forced the USGA to move the dates of the U.S. Open from June to September, Fox Sports, of course, they have the football, so they struggle to find broadcast hours, the ones that they needed for that championship. The USGA officials noted, given their additional commitments to the NFL, MLB, and college football, and then talks that began looking into how Fox Sports and NBC Golf Channel might work together this year, ultimately ended in NBC taking over entirely. So the USGA officials went on to say that while the details are confidential, yeah, right, the length of the agreement with NBC Universal apparently will be the same as Fox in that it will extend all the way through December 31st of 2026, and the financial remuneration for the USGA will also remain the same for the duration of the agreement. I'm going to pass that on to you, Fred, before I do my aftermath on that.
Well, this came as a real shocker to me. So Fox, let me get this right. So Fox is paying $100 million a year for 12 years, 1.1 billion. There's still 7 years left on the contract. So the US Open is forced to move from June, where Fox has no problem putting them on the main channel, to September, when guess what? The NFL season is cranked up and going, and the NFL is slightly bigger audience than golf, just a little bit. And Mike Davis says, Fox, we're going to be on, you're going to be on Fox. We're not going to be on FS1. You put the NFL over on FS1. And Fox is going, what? Wait a minute. We're giving you $100 million and you're telling us where we have to put your tournament when you're the one that changed, and you're telling me I got to, turn football away and put golf on? Wait a minute. Now, two things. We have said that the USGA is pretty full of themselves, and this is the case where they really are, okay? Number two, were they never really happy with Fox broadcast? Because we just rip Fox every year when they're on. Paul Azinger has helped, no question about it. He has helped. Jack Buck, not so much. Some of the rest of them, not so much. So Fox has never really done a very good job. Did the USGA see an opening and say, hey, if we force this issue, can we get Fox to say, hey, we don't want you anymore, and we'll get NBC, who does a better job broadcasting us anyhow? I don't know. I don't know this. I'm just speculating, Carlos. But for the USGA, for Mike Davis to try to dictate to Fox that they got to put them on the main channel when they have to move against football, ain't gonna happen. Didn't happen. Sayonara, see you later. And from what I understand, Fox is still paying a chunk of this. NBC is not paying the full tab. They're going to pay so much, and Fox still going to pay the rest of it through the rest of the contract.
Hey, I think it was they saw the light at the end of the tunnel, and they just went through it. I mean, that moved back to NBC, because before this, they were still on NBC. I mean, now it's NBC Golf Channel. I think that it should especially benefit the Women's Open and the amateur championships, because
absolutely.
they were really having sometimes hard to find even core golf fans, given that Fox's golf coverage was limited to just the USGA championships. Now, I mean, if you look at it, last year's ratings at the US Women's Open in Charleston were the worst on record for the championship. Only 728,000 viewers. So viewership numbers should benefit from the run up to the championships the Golf Channel will undoubtedly provide, as well as cross promotion during our broadcast. It's just one single pane of glass for them. Now, they've already agreed to bring their live from program to the US Women's Open in 2021 next year. Now, you might ask, okay, but I mean, how important are these media rights? Where take a guess. Earlier this year, at the USGA's annual meeting at Pinehurst, the organization revealed that of the $211 million in total revenue that they had last year, the media rights represented 54% of the total revenue. That's $114 million. So, okay, so how important is a healthy US Open? Well, consider that every other championship the USGA conducts loses money, with the US Women's Open losing $10 million. That's the reason why this deal is a key for them, Fred.
Yeah, it was really surprising to me, but I really see this. The USG probably saw this as an opportunity to get away from Fox, who was doing a terrible job, not getting ratings, and get back to NBC where they really should have been in the first place. Fox kind of stole this thing away. And to wrap this thing up, Carlos, so the people that put this deal together, you had Sarah Hirschfield, you had who went on to the Olympic Committee. You had Glenn Nager, you had Gary Stevenson and Tom O'Toole at the USGA. They've all been lauded. What a great big deal this was. Well, it was a good deal for the USGA getting that much money, okay? But now it's making these people look like fools. Actually, it doesn't make them look very good now. So that's another side note of this thing.
So Fred, Golf Channel is part of that deal, and things are not looking up to them right now. They announced some layoffs. Tell us a little bit about what happened there.
Yeah, NBC spent a bunch of money for this, but they own the Golf Channel, and they announced a few months ago they were going to close down the studio down in Orlando, which probably only makes sense. I mean, all their broadcasting capability is up in up in New York, so why not get everybody up there, even though the cost of living is probably 25% higher for everybody, and they might have to pay everybody a little bit more. But they were able to cut a lot of spots. They laid what, 20 or 30 people off a couple months ago. They laid another 50 people off. And these are mostly production people, camera people, behind the scenes people. So they have cut, they've been pairing some of the big names very quietly over the last year or so anyhow, and getting rid of some payroll. But Golf Channel is not in the best of shape, but by the time they get rid of some of this stuff, they move that up there and they get everything set up. And then now they got a lawsuit going too over their one program, that Golf Pass thing. Another guy said, hey, he owns that thing, and you guys use that name without my permission. You owe me a bunch of money. So there's a lawsuit going over for that, and they've included Rory in that because Rory's included in it. So yeah, NBC, they're a big dog, Comcast for sure, but they got their issues and a lot of things going on right now, Carlos.
Definitely, and so they got this big deal. They got this other news going. So that's just the tip of the iceberg as we see it. Now, a feel-good story, kind of, right? Because Ana Paula Valdés, she's from Mexico. She's a first-year player on the Women's All-Pro Golf Tour, competing in the NWA Charity Classic this week in Bella Vista. She was sprung into action to save a woman from drowning. That was Monday at Loch Lomond Lake. In a nutshell, because it's a long story and there's a lot of details, and if you want to do it, you can go to we can even post it for you if you want. But in a nutshell, what happened was that Ana Paula was really relaxing with her boyfriend Alberto Doniga, who's a caddy there at the tour, and they were seeing the waves of the Loch Lomond Lake when she heard all of a sudden commotion, some tree branches breaking and all that, and she realized that it was a golf cart that jumped the railroad tie and became airborne and crashed through the wooden fence, and it hurled down the embankment. Now, when she looks at the lake, she finally sees this lady face down on the lake as a result of that event. She went on to rescue her. She was able to reach the lady, kept her with her face out of the water. Her boyfriend and another gentleman are skiing, reached out to her via kayak, help her get the lady to safety. So Ana Paula, a great thing that she did there, saving this lady. She went on to play just one round before withdrawing for the tournament. Her mind, of course, was not at the right place. I mean, it was being elsewhere, but it's comprehensible. I mean, it's understandable. Here's how fate works. She was contemplating with her boyfriend, let's eat at another house. Should we stay here? Had they decided to go somewhere else to eat, she would have not been there and saved that lady. So Fred, she might have lost out on some money, but she definitely gained a lot in life by saving one, Fred.
Yeah, this is really a feel-good story. You don't get these kind very often. And as you mentioned, she had played a practice round. They decided to go back to the house they're staying at with some friends, eat on the patio, just relax, take it easy for a little bit. Heard the commotion, checked it out, and by the time they called 911, the water was deep enough they couldn't stand in it. They had to swim and try to save this lady and drag her back, and they got all that done, along with Anna Paula and some other people helping. As you mentioned, she did try to play. She shoots 76 and then WDs. Also in that tournament, Carlos, Maria Fassi ends up winning it. Alexa Pano was second. Well, we just keep talking about her. Man, she is going to be something. And Susie Whaley's daughter, Kelly, was T3 in that thing. So some pretty big names down there in Arkansas playing in this event, kind of a minor tour, mini tour kind of event, just to give everybody a place to play, Carlos. So really, really good story there.
So we hear that golf is getting going again in the UK, and the RNA's had something to say. So what do you have for us on those news?
Yeah, the RNA and the put out the new schedule for amateur tournaments. They're going to get these fired up again. So the women's amateur will be played at West Lancashire in August 25th to 29th. The amateur championship will be played at Royal Birkdale from August 25th to 30th, pretty much the same time. The girls amateur and the boys amateur and the women's senior amateur have been canceled, but they are going to hold the men's am and the women's am. The Curtis Cup has been rescheduled for September 3 through 5. That's assuming everybody can travel again. We can get into the UK and play all this thing. So the revised schedule will create a strong run of amateur events, beginning with the Brabazon Trophy in August, the English Women's Open Amateur Stroke Play, the European Amateur Championship, the team championship. They're getting all this stuff going again, but it's going to be August, September, trying to get it all in. So at least we're seeing the UK starting to have some golf going again. You know, as we know, in July, the PGA, the European PGA, the European Tour is going to start those tournaments in the UK and Britain. So there's starting to get golf going again in the UK and Europe, Carlos.
All right. So now that we have a couple of more news that we want to talk about, and anything else that Fred would like to add, but let's start talking about the another LPGA event has fallen off the schedule this year. This time it was the CP Women's Open. It was stated for September 3rd to the 6th in Vancouver, but it was postponed to 2021 due to the continued travel and border restrictions that COVID-19 has has imposed. I mean, international travel restrictions and mandatory quarantines, along with limitations on group gatherings in the province of BC, British Columbia, ultimately led to this year's cancellation, according to a statement that was posted on the tournament's website. So right now, Fred, a total of 13 LPGA events have been canceled, including the Evian Championship, which is a major. I mean, you can feel for our friend Michael Wand. I mean, that's just, I can't imagine how they're handling this. They haven't staged an event since the ISPS Honda Women's Open, Australian Open. That was in mid-February. It looks like it was a year ago, so long.
Like forever.
I mean,
and we're still 4 weeks away from the event, the drive on here at Inverness. Still
they're scheduled to restart the season back there in Toledo, Ohio, with back-to-back events starting on July 31st. So, Fred, I mean, things keep piling up for the LPGA. The women's want to play. They're just not getting the chance.
Yeah. The other big thing here in Toledo, for a couple years, Alan Fidel and the First Tee of Lake Erie have been trying to get, they got their hands on 43 acres of property that's right up against Inverness. And they've been trying to get the funds to develop that. They want to develop a state-of-the-art training facility. They want to help kids with tutoring. They want to help kids learn the game. They want to help kids learn how to caddy, all kinds of stuff. And so they partnered up with ProMedico, a big medical concern here in the area a few years ago, and they're all about it. And now they've also partnered up with the Boys and Girls Clubs here. And so together they've pooled all their resources and brought in donors, and they finally got the money. They're going to break ground on it this summer. They've been talking about it for about 4 years now. My good friend Alan Fidel is involved in that, and Adam Rennie is the executive director of the First Tee of Lake Erie here. He does a fantastic job. So we're going to get this thing going, and this is going to be a state-of-the-art thing, Carlos. And hopefully, if you get to come up here next year for the Solheim Cup, we'll tour that, and we'll talk about that on the show a little bit. So really big deal. But Carlos, that's about all I got tonight, other than the fact that the Michigan Golf Journal is coming out this week. The Ohio Golf Journal will be out next week. I just sent it off to the designer on Sunday. We've got Back Nine Report TV. We got all kinds of videos on there. I got another one I'm working on right now about Boyne. Hopefully we'll have that up. I got another one we're working on for Forest Dunes. We're going to have that up. So a lot of good stuff there. If you're thinking about doing any traveling for golf this year, think about a driving tip. If you're in the Midwest, get a hold of me. We got the Arthur Hills Golf Trail right here in Toledo. We can hook you up, make you a good deal. There's all kinds of other stuff too. Get a hold of us. We know where to go.
Fred Alvader is the ambassador of golf in the center of the golf universe. He can hook you up anywhere. There's
going to be an article in the July issue, Carlos, that I wrote just for you. I'm going to let you read it so you will know immediately what it is.
Yeah. All right. Looking forward to it. Well, Back Niners, that will wrap up another week of the Back Nine Report. Thank you for joining us. It's always our pleasure to bring you the latest on the world of golf. Don't forget to join us and watch us again next week on YouTube, or if you missed it, check the audio version on iTunes or tune in. If you haven't done so, what are you waiting for? Join the show. Follow it on Twitter. Our ID is at Back9 Report with the number 9 in the middle. My name is Carlos Torres, along with Fred Alvader. We wish you to be happy, be blessed, and enjoy the great game of golf. Happy golfing, everybody.
We want to see you on the Back Nine.